Luigi Venditelli. I'm a researcher in the UFO field, and I'm here today with Lisa. She has a very special story to tell, and the reason why I'm speaking is because Lisa is francophone, speaks very, very limited English, so she'll occasionally be speaking some of the details in French, but I'll try to give you as much details as I can in English. So she's was born in 1975, and what's really, really important, what's really amazing about her story is that her mother in 1975 was pregnant, she was 8 months pregnant when she decided to go upstairs in the bedroom to take a break. She had already had kids, they were in the house, they were playing, and so she was tired, as many 8-month-old future moms are, and so went to the bedroom, decided to lie down, and the moment she hit the bed, she was immediately paralyzed. And she started seeing this metallic gray object. This was immediately, so she paralyzed, and she was very concerned about that, and she started seeing this object come through the walls in the corner of the room right in front of her. And this was actually in the city of Saint-Jérôme in Quebec. And so she has no control over her body. She's completely paralyzed, and this thing is coming through, and suddenly she feels the presence of two beings, or feels the presence of somebody near her. So she turns her eyes, because she couldn't turn her head, and sees these two tiny little beings with big heads and big black eyes that are just standing by her bed. And obviously this freaked her out, and she was very concerned. So she immediately said, "Who are you? Who are you? Like, you know, leave me alone." And she said that she could hear them speaking to themselves in her head. They weren't verbally speaking, but she could hear what they were saying. And one of them said, "She's not ready yet," while the other one said, "Yes, she is." And so again, she was 8 months pregnant. So she assumed that they wanted to do something because they were saying she's ready or not ready. So she says, "Leave me alone. My kids are in the house. I don't want to do anything. Leave me alone. Please go away." And her memory that she recalls is that she convinced them to leave. And so she says that she actually convinced these two beings to not do anything, and that they left. And she saw this. She doesn't remember how the two beings actually left the room. She just knows they weren't there anymore, and that this gray metallic object was backing out, basically out of the wall, and it was gone, and that she was okay. What's really incredible is that, again, she was pregnant 8 months, so 1 month later she gives birth. And so throughout her entire pregnancy, she had gone to see her doctor as a pregnant woman would do, to go verify if everything is okay, to make sure that she was fine. And they had always confirmed that there was one baby. The doctor was confirming there was one baby. So the day that she was going into labor, the mother delivered a baby boy. And so the nurses cleaned the baby, they put him on his bed, and the doctor walked out of the room because everything was done. And not very, very shortly after that, the nurses started screaming, telling the doctor to come back because they said there's another baby. And the doctor said that's completely impossible. There's no way that there's another baby. And there was, and Lisa was born. What's really incredible is that the mother has had this incredible experience 1 month prior to her giving birth, and there was no evidence of a second baby in her womb when she was being checked by the doctor. So this is quite extraordinary. Many years after that, and this is, I would say, in Lisa's teenage years, her mother was then again visited by a being, and this time the being was not a gray. This time the being was a human-looking being. He looked like a man. And this struck me because having done so much research in the field, to her it didn't seem plausible. It was almost like, it was just a man. but I had heard of people who had experiences with these extraterrestrials or unknown beings that looked like us, looked like humans. And so this man was a very tall man. He was a redhead, and she said he was wearing, his bottom was were these like jumpsuit pants where the pant turned into like, there wasn't a shoe, it was like a whole one piece, like kind of like a onesie that a baby wears, but from the bottom down. And on the top he was wearing like a doctor's coat, and on his chest here had the medical symbol with the snake, and she remembers clearly seeing that.
Tell me again, where did she see him and experience him?
So she's immediately in a place where she's with him. She awakens with him, and she's in a room. She says it's like a large round room, and she's with this man. And she asks what his name is. She asks, who are you? And he said, you can, and keep in mind, all the communication is happening in French. But this man answered in French, "Tu peux m'appeler John." So he said, you can call me John. But in French, when you say John, it actually is Jean. But in this case, he actually used the name John. So the English version of it. It's interesting. And so they were in this room, and there was all these vials. She says there was these little tiny vials all around the room, and it looked like a pharmacy, she said. And so she asked them, where are we? What is this? What are those? And he says, that's all the medication that can cure humanity, but we're never going to give it to you because you're not supposed to be sick. And she found that to be very strange as a comment. It was something that struck her, and she wrote it down, and I remember when she told me about this.
This is Lisa's first time telling her story on camera.
Right.
How does that make her feel?
C'est la première fois que tu parles devant une caméra comme ça. Comment tu te sens?
Je me sens bien.
She feels good.
Je suis avec des personnes de confiance.
Good people.
J'ai déjà vécu aussi une expérience, j'étais un animal. Un genre de lézard, je pense.
Ah oui?
C'était une belle expérience.
Durant un voyage astral?
Mais c'était comme si c'était vrai. Vraiment, je pouvais le sentir par terre.
So she had another experience where she lived the experience of being a lizard. And she was a lizard, and she said it was very real, and she could feel her hands touching the ground like she was the lizard.
What do you think that means? Ça veut dire quoi?
Ça veut dire quoi?
Je sais pas. Je peux pas savoir.
She
Juste
doesn't
que
know.
c'est intriguant.
It's very intriguing. It's intriguing,
Sûrement
but
peut-être qu'il y a des réponses à quelque part, mais
Because some people say that they feel they have a hybrid connection with lizard people or reptilian people.
well, I'm going to tell you.
What does she think about that?
I'll just go a little bit into my research, and I've known Lisa for many years now, and we've developed a very strong friendship. When one time we were north in Quebec, and we were doing a meeting with a lot of experiencers, abductees, and all that. I organize these things every so often, and there was a woman who came in from Great Britain she had never met her. They had never met in their life, and this is another blonde woman who had incredible experiences. And this woman came out of the car, walked right up to me and said hi to me, and looked at Lisa, and the moment she looked at Lisa, she says, she's a hybrid. Now, it was an instant, it was like, and this woman had been abducted multiple times in her life, and instantly said, she's a hybrid. And I told Lisa, I said, she says, you're a hybrid. And Lisa and her, je te parle de Sarah. And Lisa and Sarah, this woman's name is Sarah, they immediately connected. There was an instant connection between them. It almost seemed strange. And that night, Lisa had this crystal that a friend of ours had given her. And this woman Sarah took the crystal. Lisa was holding it. This woman Sarah took the crystal and said, "Please ask Lisa if her blood type is O negative." And Lisa didn't understand because she doesn't speak English. So I said to Lisa, I said, "What's your blood type?" And she answered me, O negative. And so the woman Sarah says, "I knew that." And in my research, and this is something that I can say with a lot of caution, because I do believe that there's maybe a link, but we don't know enough about that yet. But one thing is for sure is that Lisa's mother is O negative, Lisa is O negative, Lisa's daughter is O negative. The people that were a lot of people that I work with that are abductees or experiencers are O negative. It is very strange that there's this O negative connotation as well. And this is something that they had talked about.
Is that the universal donor?
Yes, that's the universal donor. And I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who's a physician, he's a doctor, he's a professor of medicine at McGill and also a very well-known doctor in Montreal. And I had a conversation with him, and he knows I do this work, but doesn't associate with me publicly because of his work. And he associates with me as a friend, but not when it comes to the alien research. And I asked him, I said, "Is it possible that there is something out of the ordinary with O negative blood types?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, is it true that a woman who is impregnated, and a woman who is O negative, who is impregnated by a man who is not O negative, needs a vaccine?" And he said, "It's more complex than that, but yes." And I said, "And what if she doesn't get the vaccine?" And he said, "It's more complex than that, but likelihood is the baby won't be born. It will die." And I did not know that. And so a woman who is an O negative and is impregnated by a man who is not O negative has a very high risk of losing the baby. And that's very interesting. And again, from a scientific standpoint, it's more complex than that. And we should not jump to conclusions. And the fact that there are a lot of O negative people that have had these experiences should also not be a sign to jump to a conclusion. But I do think it's interesting. And her relationship that she had with Sarah, it's almost a spiritual relationship. It's almost as if they know each other. It's almost like c'est quand la relation avec toi et Sarah était vraiment spéciale, il y a une bonne connexion.
Ouais.
It's like a hybrid meeting a hybrid, somebody knowing somebody.
Elle parlait anglais quand même.
And she spoke English, so they didn't even understand each other, and they had this really strong relationship, which was very odd because they couldn't communicate at all. I mean, Sarah is from Great Britain, and Lisa is from Quebec, not Anglophone at all. So I mean, communication was zero, and they managed to communicate. And I was preparing dinner one time at home, and they were both home, and they were talking like they knew how to talk to each other. One was speaking English, the other one was speaking French, and they understood each other. And I thought, this is not happening.
What does all this mean to Lisa?
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire pour toi tout ça? Qu'est-ce que tu ressens de tout ça, toi, personnellement?
Comment je pourrais dire ça? C'est sûr que je suis sûrement ici pour quelque chose, mais différent peut-être des autres, je sais pas. On est peut-être plusieurs dans le monde qui est comme ça, comme moi. On sait pas trop qu'est-ce qui se passe, qu'est-ce qui va arriver, mais c'est sûr que ça peut pas continuer comme ça. Je pense comme ça. C'est un peu lourd à porter, je trouve, aussi. On se sent impuissant.
It's like she has a reason for being here, and it's a little different than other people. but she says that she feels that there's a lot of people that are like this, and there's something to be done, and that what she's often told me is she says it's like we need to change things, and it's a very heavy burden to have, and she doesn't know why this happened. She just knows that there's something, but she can't tell anybody what she doesn't know what it is, and she actually would like to.